Other yellow hat guy here, back with another video. And let's talk Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yes, I have finally seen it. Yes, it has finally come out, more importantly, so that I can see it and so the rest of you can see it. So, when you look at the trailer for this movie, they didn't really show much. It was just kind of open-ended, some speech. You may have read on the internet that Dan Aykroyd was involved and that he was able to convince, Ernie Hudson and Bill Murray to be a part of this one. This project has gone through several different rewrites and phases. We just all thought a Ghostbusters 3 should be natural. We did have that Ghostbusters that came out a couple of years ago, which it was more like a spiritual successor and not like actual Ghostbusters to some. So I can understand why some people are like, no, that one doesn't count, blah, 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 blah. This one right here, it's a little bit of both of that. It's a spiritual successor, but it could be just Ghostbusters 3 just based off of how much time has passed. So the backstory here is that Harold Ramis has passed. That's Egon Spengler. So if you remember the cartoons and the movies, he was the nerdy one. He was the one that really put the whole team together. He was the one that knew what was really going on. Everybody else was kind of just the charm, the backup, the muscle, and as Winston Zeddemore put it, he was the sex appeal. So what you find out in this movie, I'm not going to give everything away, it's pretty much Stranger Things crossed with Ghostbusters. And I think the idea here was, can an 80s type movie work in today's climate? And I don't think that they felt like Ghostbusters on its own could, but if you watch Stranger Things and have those 80s kinds of vibes and the spookiness and everything, you're like, oh, that could work. What if we did that, but we have people busting ghosts? What if we have down-to-earth people who don't have to be super brainy, and we don't have to have this 80s and 90s type of tech ideas and concepts that people can just easily dismiss? What if we had something like that? And I think that's what they did here. The main character, I don't know her name. She is the granddaughter of Egon. She was perfect. She did everything that was asked of her. She carried this movie. That's not to say that this movie was bad and that the other actors and actresses were bad. It's just that you're pretty much experiencing any sense of a believability through this highly intelligent 12-year-old. Yes, 12-year-old. So the story pretty much is that her mother and brother are with her. They're in Egon's old farmhouse. They called him a dirt farmer. He essentially went mad, according to everyone, because he believed that the apocalypse was coming. What it really was is you had these ghosts all coming to this one location in Somerville, somewhere in the United States, right? I don't remember exactly where it was. It could have been Somerville, Ohio, or something. I don't know. Anyway, everything was concentrated there, and there hadn't been ghost sightings in like 30 years. They kind of alluded to the last, movie where things were going on and what have you. So any interest you had was built up here, or you were just out of this movie. So for me, it was like, okay, they're at least respecting the history of it and going forward. That was key for me because, it's not Ghostbusters if you don't respect those first two movies. It's just how I felt. So I don't know why I threw my hands up defensively, because I know some people might be like, well, which one are you taking a shot at? Are you saying the other ones haven't or whatever? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the reservations I came in with it were based off of that. Okay, so moving along from that, you had Paul Rudd's character, who was like a summer school teacher and everything, and he was, helping the main character Phoebe get in touch with, or getting acclimated with the area and getting in touch with the school and how that was all going to be set up. And then you had another young character who he was called Podcast. They never gave him an actual name. So I felt like while Phoebe had pretty good character development, everyone else, not so much. That would be the one takeaway I'd have for this movie off of first thought, is they didn't have that. fully developed for all the other characters. And you might say, hey, that might have changed the pacing of it, and you wanted to learn about these characters as the movie went on. That's the difference. If you just had Ghostbusters 3 and called it that, and you had the original cast, there was no reason to recap a whole lot. That would just be the first 15 minutes, and then it's like, let's go get these ghosts, you know. So you learn about Phoebe and how she's actually Egon's granddaughter, and Egon's relationship with his daughter, and eventually there's a falling out between Egon and you know, the other Ghostbusters, and you find out why, and it's essentially what I told you about them losing everything over Egon believing in something that nobody else did, which was something crazy was going to happen, and he couldn't really explain it, and he spent the rest of his life doing that. This was all largely in part to Harold Ramis passing, and they needed a way to write that into the story. So, hence the title, Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, all in all, what happens here is, you guessed it, the Phoebe character ends up figuring all this out, and, you know, there's some ghosts. They find Egon's old equipment, and eventually they contact, you know, they come in contact with some of these Ghostbusters from the past, the old crew and everything, so it all came full circle. So, that out of the way, I really thought this was a good movie. I know this is a short review. It's not going to be a long-winded one, because this movie just came out, and I would feel weird just telling every little thing. There were some ghosts that you're going to recognize, and there's some where you're like, wait a minute, where is so-and-so? Where is that character in there? Some of my favorite scenes were, you know, seeing the old Ghostbuster car again. Somehow, after all this time, it still had gas in it. And not once did I see them pull over to go get gas. So, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of the video game where you constantly had to get gas, but you would think that after 30 years, they drove all over the city. And granted, it is a small town. It is a small area, so maybe you don't need a whole lot, but that was irking me the whole time. But it was nice to see the original cast. It was nice to see what they had been up to. Peter, some kind of teacher. You know, Winston is well off, well-to-do. And what I want to leave you with is there's 2 post-scene credits, so you got to look into those. You want to make sure you see those, because there's potential here for a sequel. You know, these guys are getting old. Bill Murray's with the gray hair. He looks like he's just done. He looks like, you know, it had to be a really good script for him to even set foot on there. I read something that he had a falling out with Harold Ramis, so that was, you know, part of the reason why we didn't get a Ghostbusters 3 a lot sooner. I mean, let's just be honest, we should have had one of those like in the 90s at some point, maybe like a Ghostbusters 2000. You know, we should have had, you know, more than one of those movies, and it's just sad that things played out like they did, but we at least got this movie. I don't think they could have made this movie without at least the 3 of them. We thought, hey, without Harold Ramis, it wasn't possible. But they tried with at least the 3, and we'll see what they do going forward with these characters. This movie wasn't all original Ghostbusters, right? It was a mix of, like I said, Stranger Things and Ghostbusters. If you're familiar with Stranger Things on Netflix, you know what I'm talking about. The pacing was just like that. You had very young characters, teenagers, and, you know, preteens. The movie was a coming of age, like figuring out who you are, discovering your past and how it connects to you. Again, I use that term full circle. And then accepting things have changed. But the more they change, the more they stay the same. So we'll see what happens. I liked that the CGI and everything, you know, here in 2020, this decade, so much better than it would have been in this 80s and 90s stuff. So I am happy to report that. The last thing I could say is just simply this. Go see the movie, go support it. It was for Harold Ramis. That's what I was appreciative of most. I was like, they had a nice touching scene in there that made me tear up a little. Overall, what I'm going to give this movie is an 8 out of 10. it could go anywhere between a 7 and 8, but I feel a strong 8 mainly because of that scene. I felt like I gave an extra point for that because it brought me back to when I was a child, when I was young, watching this series play out and thinking, man, could this possibly be real? Do you really believe in ghosts? And everybody's got their own faith and different things that they believe in and subscribe to. So being young and seeing this comedy series play out based off of some stuff that may have been, discovered and in some kind of rooted in some kind of science, it's just like, whoa. I remember hearing noises in the dark and saying, maybe this Ghostbusters stuff is more than just a movie. Maybe it's fact. It's fiction rooted in fact, So yeah, I did appreciate that, the lack of character development, and it wasn't a full-out comedy like the original Ghostbusters. It was something a little bit different. Those would be the two things that I would take away from it, from keeping it having that 10. But it didn't disappoint me. That was the most important thing. So I will end it here. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I ain't afraid of no ghosts, so don't you be either. Other yellow hat guy is out. Captain Sensation!